So Tim, do you think there's such a thing as a natural comic?
A natural comic. I'm tempted to say no, just because I think there's a danger in coming up with an archetype of who a comic is and what he or she should sound like. I think you might block yourself out to the possibilities of lots of different people being funny and lots of different people with life experiences actually being funny. I've found men and women funny. I've found old people funny, young people funny, and I think you've got to keep yourself open to the possibilities of a lot of those people being funny. But at the same time, I think funny people seem to have a lot of characteristics in common. I think they're usually good at timing. They read their audience in front of them, and they tend to say things in too few words rather than too many, and I think they get to their point quickly, and they almost leave you wanting more with the way that they phrase things.
Tim, you sound like somebody who's actually thought about comedy quite a bit. You've studied the genre.
I've had to. I guess we're all experts in our own way on comedians. We've all watched Seinfeld and thought about what it would be like. But yeah, this is the first time I've given it a proper amount of thought, I guess. Yeah.
What kind of subjects draw the biggest laughs?
On the Newcastle scene, and I guess this is pretty universal. I guess it's the stuff that people can relate to from their everyday lives, but with a spin on it that sort of draws out the absurdities and the inconsistencies. For example, in the Oriental Hotel, there was a guy in Cooks Hill where I went and saw some stand-up. There was a guy who got a lot of laughs just with some stuff he did about going and shopping at Aldi and going in and finding himself coming out with stuff that he doesn't need, but he just put an absurd spin on that. Like he'd come out of there with a saxophone and a South American act stand and things like that. So I think just simple things done in an absurd way, that seems to be a universal kind of winner.
Do you think there's any topics that are taboo in comedy?
Certainly, I think I think in the wrong hands, it can definitely be wrong to talk about stuff. There are certain comedians who can almost get away with talking about anything, and I think the way they do that is they keep in mind where the power is in the joke and where the relationships are. If someone is, for example, if someone makes a joke about racism, if they put themselves in the privileged position, it can come across as just mean. Whereas if someone positions themselves as the underdog and still makes the joke, it's more making you think about this issue rather than making fun of the people who are on the wrong end of it. So I think, in that sense, some people can get away with just about anything.
Do you have greater respect for the art of comedy than you did before you went into this process?
Absolutely. It's definitely not just getting up there and talking. A lot of people who do this, even at an amateur level, their jokes have moving pieces, and they know which piece goes where and how they get from one end of their funny anecdote to another, and that stuff isn't happening by accident. You'd just get lost up there otherwise. So, it's really interesting talking to people backstage and hearing them say, man, that bit was great, or I like how you did that, and presumably storing it away in their memory and hoping that they can be a bit funnier than the other guy. But absolutely, there's a lot that goes into it, and it's kind of nice to be around that discussion as it's happening.
Do you have any Newcastle-specific jokes in your own repertoire?
I kind of used a Newcastle-specific one. I told a story up there about a time that I wrote a story where I had like this. It wasn't even a proper dig. It was like a half-assed dig at the suburb of Windale, and the hate mail that I got about that, and And it's sort of it was a big mistake to do it because I didn't know anything about Windale, and I didn't think anything of it, but I was kind of overwhelmed by the reaction to it and the pride that these people had in their suburbs. So yeah, they certainly showed me, and the people in the audience while I was telling the story, they kind of responded to that. I think everyone in Newcastle has a view on Windale, so that's kind of why I thought that would be a safe one.
Do you have a favorite comedian, and who is that, and why is that?
Yeah, I would say it used to be Ricky Gervais, but I'd say now it's Louis C.K. And I think I just think he's so brilliant. I think he's relentless with what he'll joke about. But I don't know, just in flowing sort of in between all the gags, there's like this undercurrent of tragedy, and he's just like this sort of balding, rather large, middle-aged guy who's a single dad, and his life is falling apart. But he just finds the laugh in he finds the humor in getting his kids ready for school and how that can fall apart, and getting rejected. Like he talks about how he's single, but he's not really single. He's just alone. Like there's not an option for a guy his age. And I think he makes a lot of stuff that's quite profound as well. So he's my favorite comic.
So how would somebody describe this new comic on the scene, this Tim Connell character? What would they say about him?
He's not very good on his feet. He pretty much has to script everything quite meticulously, and he really doesn't like hecklers. So if there are any in town who are looking for someone to prey on, this guy's too easy. This is easy meat. Just you won't get a good sparring match. You'll probably just get asked nicely just to stop it, and please do if that happens. But no, I guess I just I think in my job there are some hilarious things that happen, and there are some hilarious people that you get to meet and just interact with. So I try and mine that for jokes, and it's only I've only been up once, so I've burned through a lot of material. But if I ever did it again, I guess that's the well I'd go back to.
So do you think you will do it again, Tim?
I have been asked, and maybe that was just politeness by the comedians I hung out with, but they were really nice about it and said that I should get back up again. And I've got to say, with that rush that you get from getting through your bit and not getting booed and even getting some laughs, the first thing that you think of is, hell, I got to do this again, and have some beers tonight. Mainly have the beers, but then you think, wow, someday I've got to do this again. So I wouldn't rule it out, and I kind of get excited just thinking about it. So might have to watch this space for that one.